It was something, of course, you shared this passion with millions of other people, but one other very famous American, Hemingway.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him?
He was a very close friend of mine.
Was he?
Yeah. I knew him on and off for many years. We had a very strange relationship. He was, I never belonged to his clan because I made fun of him. And nobody ever made fun of Hemingway.
Yeah.
But I did. And he took it, but he didn't like me to do it in front of the club. We met in a projection of a movie which he had made, in which he wanted me to narrate. And he had written the commentary. This is many years ago.
Yeah.
And we hadn't seen each other. This is a dark projection room, and I was reading the text. And I said, is it really necessary to say this? Do you think, wouldn't it be better to just see the picture? And things like that. And then I heard this growl from the darkness, you know. Some damn faggot who runs an art theater trying to tell me how to write narration and so on. So I began to camp it up. I thought, if that's what I'm dealing with, I said, oh, Mr. Hemingway, you think because you're so big and strong and have hair on your chest that you try to bully me, you see. So this great figure stood up and swung at me. So I swung at him. Now you have the picture of the Spanish Civil War being projected on a screen, and these two heavy figures swinging away at each other and missing most of the time. The lights came up, and we looked at each other and burst into laughter and became great friends. Not a friendship that was renewed every year, but over many years at different times.
Yeah.
And I saw him in the last year in which he was still entirely in control of himself, again, quite a lot. But we never discussed bullfighting because we, except on the subject of Ordonez, we disagreed profoundly on too many points. And he thought he invented it, you know.
Yes.
He really did think he invented it.
Yes. Of course,
maybe he did.
His book, of course, is still
it's superb.
a magnificent.
And it's a superb book. He's a great, great, great artist. My admiration for... I was enormously fond of him as a man, too, because the thing you never get from his books was his humor.
Yes.
There's hardly a word of humor in a Hemingway book because he's so tense and solemn and dedicated to what is true and good and all that. But when he relaxed, he was riotously funny. And that was the level that I loved about him. And I enjoyed being with him. I used to go out and keep him company when he went duck shooting in Venice in the autumns. I have many strange memories of him like that. And I was enormously fond of him. But as an artist, I think that it's really... there are very few important writers, with the exception of Novikov, who have not been influenced to some degree by him. I think it's impossible to write the same as we did before he wrote.
And yet, do you not sense now that he's become, over the past 10 years, an old-fashioned sort of figure?
He's come back again, I think.
Yeah.
My hunch is, I don't know in England, of course, because these things vary in different countries. In America, he was in total eclipse for the last 10 years, but the sun is rising again, critically for him, a little bit. He's been dead long enough. I think it's mainly true, isn't it, that writers do go into total eclipse right after their death.
Yes.
I wonder why that is, but it seems to be true.
He was ultimately, of course, a tragic figure, wasn't he? I mean, in that his end was complete counterpoint to all that he'd stood for and written about.
He was sick. But he did talk about suicide. You know, his father killed himself with a gun in the same way. Yeah. And he talked to me about it several times.
Really?
In a sort of obsessive way.
Yes.
But he was a sick man. He wasn't merely... he was not well mentally, you know.
Yes.
He's not to be judged as himself. In other words, the Hemingway we are talking about did not choose his death.
Yes.
He might have, but he wasn't that man.